One of us is in the office. Each day, one of us is at home. So we kind of flip-flop and take turns being in the office. We're still available for phone calls and emails throughout the day. So we're still fully functioning. We're just in different locations. And we do have a drop box outside the front office door now, a secure one, not just a cardboard box, that we've been using to put in documents, or for people to drop off documents, I should say, after hours. So kind of the same phase that we've been in since March, but it's working out okay. As far as EQIP goes, which is, for you new folks, it's the Environmental Quality Incentive Program. It's our biggest program. Some of the practices and management type things that were completed and paid since the last meeting, since your last meeting, were no-till, 3 brush management projects, several fence and pipeline for grazing projects, grazing plan implementation, and we still have 38 EQIP contracts that have 1 or more practices planned for this fall. So we still have a busy season ahead of us. As far as the last EQIP sign up, we're still wrapping up the last few plans and contracts for the year 2020. We ended up funding 34 applications, and those applications totaled $1.1 million. So it was a pretty busy year. About 400,000 of that was in the Bear Lake watershed, or in the adjacent to the Bear Lake watershed. At least part of it was in that watershed. So that was a good chunk of the money going to our priority watershed. A short list of practices, I'm not going to list all 34 practices, but a short list of what got funded include water and sediment control basins, quite a few of those, comprehensive nutrient management plans, prescribed grazing, cover crops. We got a few low disturbance manure applications funded, roof runoff controls, feed leachate project, and a bunch of deer exclosure projects as well. So that's good. We got that money kind of late in the game, so those are the ones we're working on right now to get obligated, but those should help people try to get their forests regenerated.
Lisa, just a question on the water basins. Do you monitor those down the road to make sure that they stay in place the way they were designed?
Yeah, I mean, we can really easily see them from the aerial imagery. So in that sense, we can monitor them. And Brian now with his drone, Brian, you could maybe jump in here. He's flown over a few of them during storm events to see if they were working. And that's another nice way to monitor them to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and prior to that, I mean, staff do monitor them. You know, Greg in particular likes to go out and see them after a rain event if he can get to them and make sure they're working. I mean, we've had some of these in since before I worked here. I mean, 25, 30 years, and they're mostly still good. The problems we've had in the past always happen the first year. Generally, we've had a couple of crushed tiles that were crushed by the construction process unknowingly. And the first time it rains, we have a problem, but generally that's pretty easy to fix.
So after 10, 15 years, they really don't need to be scooped out at all? I mean, they're pretty much kind of...
We never have. I mean, theoretically, they're designed to hold 10 years worth of sediment and they could be scraped out, but you know, most of our stuff is relatively overly built, at least until the rainfalls we've been getting lately. But I don't know that we've ever cleaned one out, even one that's 25 years old. So
okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the Conservation Stewardship Program. We did have a sign up this year. However, the word has gotten out of what a good program it is, and there's stiff competition now. So we did not get any of our 7 applications funded. The demand just exceeded the funding in Wisconsin this year. They're talking about another sign up either this fall or early next year. So we're going to encourage our folks to try again. On that note, with the stewardship program, they want us to make the payments to our 37 existing contracts rather early this year, at least by November 6th. So we're going to be working on trying to get those people paid early this year, which is kind of hard sometimes because they have to turn in their documentation to us, and sometimes that's like pulling teeth, but we do our best to try to get them to report what they did for that program on time. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was the Conservation Reserve and the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program. That's CRP and CREP. Although it's an FSA program, NRCS takes care of the technical aspects of the program. So we do the site visits, we write the conservation plans and the cost share agreements, and we coordinate the installation with the participants. So the office received about 62 applications this year. So we conducted 62 site visits, which resulted in 59 contracts covering 730 acres. So it was our biggest sign up in quite a few years. And we just finished up with those on Friday, believe it or not. And so many participants, this is where you guys come in, many participants will rely on renting the no-till drill from your department to get their prairies and their conservation covers installed either this fall or next spring. So you'll be getting calls on that drill for rent.
That drill non-stop busy for 2 years. So.
Yes. Definitely.
What would you say, Lisa, in particular, would you say that overall the amount of people getting a hold of you hasn't changed a lot from other years or in general?
I think it's been pretty steady compared to past years. Yep. EQIP kind of, the amount of funding we get for EQIP is always hovered around, between 800,000 and 1.2 million. We did have a couple large projects in this sign up that were quite expensive. So I think that's probably why the money is a little bit higher than last year. But yeah, the demand has remained steady for all of our programs. The one thing that's changing is what people sign up for. Years ago, it just used to be, mulch till. So they, instead of chisel plowing in the fall, they'll wait until spring and do that. Now we've kind of stepped up that game a little bit. We've gone to more no-till, more cover crops, more soil health type practices. So it's just the kind of practice has changed a little, but the demand is still pretty steady.
Is the cover crop in general all the same type of seeds, or is it a variation of different areas with different soils?
It's surprisingly different depending on each farm. If you have just your typical corn soybean rotation and the corn comes off rather late, then all they can really do is do a winter rye type cover crop. But if their rotation's a little more diverse, say they have wheat in their rotation and they get that wheat off at the end of July, early August, then they have time to go in and do, almost any species. So at that point, you'll see people doing radish and turnips, clovers even. I've got some veggie people who put in quite a cocktail mix of clovers and oats. So it depends on the rotation, but people go a little crazy sometimes with cover crops, and they just try new things and do like a cocktail mix of cover crops. So it's pretty neat. What we coach people to do is to plant a cover crop that's going to benefit their soil type and what they're trying to achieve. So, for example, if they have a compaction issue, then we'll try to go with more of a deep-rooted type cover crop. If they have low organic matter, then we just want something that's got a very vibrant root structure to kind of build up that organic matter in that soil. So it's kind of a one size does not fit all type of scenario. We customize each mix to each farm.
Okay. I think this year kind of caused some changes once again with the weather, with the dry weather, and then the heat there a little earlier. I know up by me, like Erickson's, they already had a lot of corn silage off the last couple of days of August. So
Right.
From a cover crop standpoint, they could really do a lot of stuff.
They could do a lot of stuff, yeah. And our program, in particular for the dairy people, allows them to take a forage cutting of their cover crop the next spring. So they can't let it go to a grain, obviously, because then it would be considered a crop, not a cover crop. But people like Erickson, they do kind of a harvestable cover crop, so they can, put up some triticale or some rylage for the following year. So it's kind of a, buy one, get two for free type of option when it comes to dairy people.
Yeah, I can't reiterate how huge that's been. The ability to take it off as a forage next year has really, as you'll see later in our contract list, has really enticed a lot of the dairy guys into cover crops here. So.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have questions for Lisa? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Jake, you're up.
All right. How's everybody this morning?
Good.
All right. Yeah. My name is Jake Berger. I am the Farm Service Agency manager for Waupaca County now. I have 3 offices. I got Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point, and now Waupaca. We're kind of shifting around. Just before that, I was in Stevens Point, Rapids, Marathon, Wausau, and Anago. So it's kind of like Lisa said, not one plan fits all. Well, Waupaca is definitely a different animal than going to Anago or Wisconsin Rapids. So it's a learning experience for myself, just as well as a learning experience for everyone else. As far as the office status, I guess I don't, for lack of repeating everything that Lisa said, she's pretty much spot on with all that. We're shut down, etc. It does not work well for FSA, not even close, because we work with our programs. All I can say is try to take, 1,000, 1,500 crop reports from farmers in a matter of 2 months through the mail. It's very difficult when you can't meet with farmers, especially with all the information we need. You take a crop report, you need the acres, the crop, its intention, the date planted, where it's at, location, field boundaries. You need all that stuff on the map as they change every year. And let's face it, a lot of them have a hard time to figure out when you send them their maps which way is north. So we've had many difficulties with that. This whole COVID thing has really thrown a monkey wrench in many of our programs. Just lots of mistakes, but it's expected. And the ladies in the office spend 95% of their time on the phone, it appears, just try to straighten things out. And they're throwing all these new programs at us. We, as you're probably familiar with, we're always, a couple years behind with our programs when it comes to disaster type issues, because obviously by the time we have a declaration for a disaster and an eligible program and they get that passed, Congress comes up with the money, etc. Well, right now we're paying out disaster monies on 2018 crops. So we're looking at, we've done a lot of work with 2018 and 2019. As you know, those were very wet years. So we've got what's called WIP, WIP Plus. And just a long story short, we've had quite a few applications in that program. And what that is wildfires, hurricanes, et cetera, kind of your natural disasters. And we were safe until Congress come out with a plus sign behind this program. And that plus meant excessive moisture. And that's what made Waupaca County and the surrounding counties eligible for 2018 and 2019, because as you remember, we set record amounts of rainfall That congressional act also included the year 2020. So we go for dry, and according to a lot of crop insurance reports, we'll probably have a bunch of claims on drought come 2020 when they enact the 2020 programs. So we have once again, through the mail and things like that, it's been difficult, but the ladies are doing a pretty good job with the program.
Just a question,
A big one.
just a question there before you go to the next thing.
Yes.
You're gonna get to it. You get a lot of demand for loans?
Well, what type of loans? We used to have a pretty good demand on our commodity loan.
Operating loans.
Okay, operating loans. That's through our loan side, our farm loan side, and yes. We spend all the money that we get every year, and there's always a backlog. So not everyone gets funded. I do not have the numbers with me for Wapaka County. I have a different loan manager for each of my counties here. So our Wapaka County is actually administered out of Shawano. The farm loan team up there takes care of any of the loan requests as far as farm ownership loans, operating loans, that type of thing, that they work with them out of Shawano. My other counties work out of Neilsville. But I do know that we have a lot of requests on the books to get those funded, yes. The coronavirus, as many of you are probably aware, it come up with what we call the CFAP program. It's the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. And that is where, based on commodities and cattle, you are guaranteed a certain amount of money per bushel, per animal, this type of thing. We started that program here in June, and it's still going. The deadline was last Friday. And Wapaka County alone, we've had well over 300 farms, I shouldn't say farms, individuals. It goes by the actual operator themselves. So many farms, but have applied, and we're up over $2.5 million, almost $3 million. We've paid out on that program to farmers just in Wapaka County. There will be, due to the depression in commodity prices, milk prices, cattle prices, there's going to be, the Secretary of Ag has not officially announced, but it will be there, a CFAP 2. What that means is there's going to be another round of those payments. Now, we have no idea what that entails. If it's going to require all new applications again, I'm kind of sneaking thinking that it probably will, because I know the dates. Now, without spending an hour explaining this program, there were certain dates. For example, you had to have corn in inventory between January 15th, or well, after January 15th in order to apply for the program. Beef cattle. If you sold cattle of a certain weight, et cetera, between January 15th and April 14th, we paid you so much money, okay? Well, I have an idea they may change those dates from April 15th to May 1st. So we're, if you sold them between that time, we're going to pay you a certain amount of money. So if they do that, obviously all your cattle numbers will change. If we do that for commodities, then all your bushels, for example, all those commodities will change. So it'll probably require a whole nother application on behalf of the operator. But that is coming. And rumor has it will be expanded, including way more types of crops. And I don't know about the cattle, but they're talking about other types of cattle and things like that. So it's a lot of money going out there to the ag economy, for sure.
Question on that.
Yep.
So the larger farmers, I understand that the small calves didn't have a lot of value, okay? But I know there are some individuals that are buying these calves all up, okay?
Sure.
Now, I'm gathering the farmer gets or probably entitled under this program a certain amount of money for the calves within reason. And
Okay.
then also the issue that the price of milk now, I'm talking to one of my former customers in church yesterday. He was expecting about $20 per 100 for milk this month. So that's an improvement from where that was here about 3 months ago. So I'm assuming all that kind of gets weighed in there.
Well, yes and no. We're talking about the past. So for milk, for example, we paid out $4.74 a hundredweight for every pound produced for January, February, and March. Okay,
Regardless of the price.
excuse me?
You're regardless of the price of the milk at the time.
Correct, because Washington DC and all their surveys and their information, they determined that the price of milk in each one of those months was $4.74 below what they should have got. Okay, it was depressed due to the corona situation. Now they've taken I'm guessing, now don't go to the newspapers, but I'm guessing what'll happen is now we're going to take, because this coronavirus effects was so prolonged, that now they're going to look back and say, well, what was the price for April, May, and June? They're going to find that the price did not come back as what was projected. That's just like your individual. He expects $20 a 100 next month for his milk. He may get 15. That happens a lot with futures. But I have an idea in round two. I'm just speculating, using this example. Like I said, don't go out on the streets and broadcast. But I have an idea we'll be paying a certain amount of money, probably similar to what we paid in January, February, March. We'll be paying that out per 100 weight for April, May, and June, as an example.
Is there a cap limit for the larger operators that have 3,000-4,000 cows?
Yes, there is. This could get into a very long formula here.
Well, no, I just want to sit. I don't need to know all of it. But.
Yeah, well, we have, they created this rule, if 75% of your income is from the farming operation versus someone that owns and is not active in the farming operation, there's different limits there. But for example, we had several producers that are like incorporated or partnerships, those type of things, that have hit the $250,000 limitation. So kind of take that as a base for the CFAP program, this coronavirus program, that basically if the farming operations owners or shareholders, I'll call them, if the shareholders, if 75% of that entity's income was from the farming operation, they got the $250,000 limitation. So we had several of them. I mean, they hit that with just one crop. I mean, so if they qualify in certain areas, there would be more than one person could get that $250,000 limitation. Okay, so there's different levels there, depending on how they qualify.
Okay.
But that's the main thing we've been doing between crop reporting and the CFAP program. Lisa already mentioned CRP. And now we're gearing up for what looks like the 2.0. Let me just mention DMC. That's the Dairy Market Coverage Program for your Wapaka County dairy producers. That program paid out very well, and it paid out very well, unfortunately, I want to say. We like it when we don't pay any money in that program, because that meant milk prices were within a certain margin of the cost of producing that milk. It operates like an insurance program. We have a feed cost to produce 100 pounds of milk, and this program, the producer can pay a premium, and he can buy certain level coverages up to, in 50 cent increments, up to $9.50. So what he's doing is basically buying a margin from his cost of producing milk up to $9.50 margin. So between what national prices, now it's not what the individual gets. That's always usually confusing for people, but it's not what the individual gets on his farm or from his milk plant, the processing plant, but it's on national average. So we use pretty much national feed cost averages, national milk class 3 averages, and the producer can buy a margin anywhere from $4 to $9.50. That program paid out very well this past year also. So for the beginning months. And I believe the CFAP program is going to tack onto that. And that's why, see, that program paid through June. And that's why I say we already paid out on the coronavirus program, January, February, March. And that's why I kind of figure since we paid on that one, I'm looking at April, May, June, we'll probably pay on the CFAP, my guess. So, but that program is out there for the dairy people. It looks like in October, we have another program that dealt with the commodities, and due to the depressed prices for soybeans, corn, wheat, those will probably pay what we call a PLC. That's a price loss coverage type program. We have set yields on farms, and there's set bases on farms. In other words, bases in an acreage type acreage base. It's a historical planting of that certain crop on a farm. It looks like the average market price, coarse grains, which is your soybeans and your corn, that average, the market year for those things goes from, for example, now for the 2019 crop, that market year went from September 1st of 19, through August 31st of 2020. That's the marketing year. And I can say that the marketing year Washington had set in 2018 when they passed the Farm Bill. I'll take corn, for example. They set the average price at $3.70. If it averages during the year nationwide less than $3.70, they'll get a payment on those, on their set yields on their farms. And it looks like it was definitely below $3.70, even nationwide. So you're probably looking at 9-10 cents a bushel, I guess, that they'll get paid for that program. So FSA will be making a bunch more payments in October. There's another program that combines yield and prices, and I could take up your whole day, but explaining that. But it looks like those programs are going to pay. That's just kind of give you an impression how depressed prices have been this past year, I guess. So our programs are going to be active, unfortunately, for another year, the way it looks. So that's pretty much it. I do just want to mention, we have a lot of farmers, you know, in the last few years, and Lisa knows this too, that have broken out new land, have expanded, bought out farms, have done that kind of thing. And maybe not so much in Wapaka County, but I know my other counties, we've got producers that have just totally foregone our programs and put in tile and ditches, and they're draining stuff and they're farming the land, that's for sure. So we've got probably more than, I mean, since 1985, we had a stretch there in the early 80s there where we had quite a bit of tile going in and that type of thing. I'll have to say in the last 5 years, it appears that we've had a lot of that same activity. I got a lot of farmers, a lot of producers in my 4 counties that were once eligible that are no longer eligible for our programs due to conservation compliance. They're going to farm. So just as a side note. That's pretty much what we've been doing.
What was the base price per 100 for milk?
Oh, I didn't hear that. What?
What was the base price for milk?
The base price for milk?
Let's go back to January, February, March or something.
Well, what do you base the $4.25 per 100 reimbursement? Or what is the regular price? $17 a 100? Is that what you base it on?
The price of milk, I do not know what the national price was. I guess I knew that 6 months ago. Now I can't remember how they did their figures. I apologize for that. I can't tell you what that was what they based it off of. And that's because they use all the national numbers. So nationally at the price 3, I just know we paid out $4.74. So between what 2 prices they used, I can't tell you. 74, yeah, $4.74 is what it came out to be.
Okay, it's good to hear from you, and hopefully in the future, we'll be able to hear from you on a regular basis.
Yeah, sure. It's yeah, like I say, Waupaca County's new to me here. I've been around FSA for quite a while, and to tell you how long I've been around, I got 34 years in managing offices around the state here, and another 15 months, you'll be looking for a new manager.
Oh boy. Well, at least you don't have to worry about cranberries right now, huh?
Yeah, I do. I still have to worry about them. I have Wood County also, the #1 county in the United States with cranberries.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
We better keep going.
Okay, back to me, meeting reports. Really not much to say about the demo network because we did not meet since our last LWCC. We'll be meeting next week, and the technical guys are still working on a fall field day here, they hope. So once crops are totally off. I had been to a couple, I think I mentioned this last time, the July and the August Public Property Committee meetings regarding the drainage issue with the neighbor to Lakeview Manor where the wetland mitigation site is. I didn't report on that last week to public property, but I'm still working with the gal from DOT on that issue a little bit. I don't think that some of the members of public property were particularly thrilled with DOT's answer, that they didn't really view that there was a problem there. And I would have to agree with our committee. I think there is a bit of a problem there. It's just whether we're going to fix it or not, and whether we care. So we'll continue to work on that a little bit.
Can I ask a question? Isn't in fact Lakeview Manor no longer a nursing home and is owned by R4 here in Waupaca?
That would be correct. The ownership entity name is something different, Bob. I can't.
Yes, yeah, I know. It's a different name.
But the only thing they own, trying to think of what the CSM was, it was roughly about 15 acres that we sold off there. So we still own 200 plus acres of cropland. And then that wetland mitigation was also surveyed off as a separate parcel. I think that's like 55 acres that really, it belongs to the county, but we have no say over it. DOT controls it from the Highway 10 expansion 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on. Normally we don't visit our fee schedule until the last month of the year, but because of some things going on with our trim grants, I had to put this paper in front of you, and Bob, I didn't send you one, but I'm going to put it up on screen here. If I get the right one. All right, can you see that, Bob?
Right now, yes, now I can.
Okay. So there were a few things we didn't foresee or consider when setting our fee schedule last December for 2020. And that is the fact that we now have these large scale trim grants versus where we always had small scale trim grants. And the small scale trim grants are a pretty fair amount of workload for one operator. That's why they always carried that 7.5% fee. That fee kind of reflected what we were able to recoup from the grant back when we did force account, which was a lot of work versus just charging our fee, which is really simple. However, now that we have the large scale trim grants, the staff said to me the other day, we're just about ready to start paying out on some of these items for the year. And one of the guys said, you know, are we still charging 7.5% for a large scale trim grant project when it very much mirrors our DAT cap land and water resource grants on top? You know, there was a fair amount of work for this grant, but it was done once for dozens and dozens of landowners over a 3 to 4 year period. So the work per landowner is really no more than our work in the DAT cap grant program. And, you know, one of the guys and I were having a discussion and basically said, yeah, this would be hard to defend that we're charging 7.5% for this grant and 5% for the DAT cap money when we could use either or in a lot of these situations. It's just eligibility depends on geographic location. So I thought we better make a change in our fee schedule to reflect that. You know, the state allows us to charge fees, but we're supposed to keep these things defensible and within reason. So that is the first red ink you see there is splitting trim grants into large and small, keeping the 7.5% for the small and going to a 5% for the large projects. I know that's a misnomer that we charge more for a small and less for a large, but it's all about our volume of work per project. And then the other thing that was unforeseen, because we just got this here early this year, January, February, I forget when we approved this, but we have these harvestable buffer grants now. For us, that was 50,000 from DAT cap this year, plus there's money coming in from DNR for that. And we didn't have that on our fee schedule. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the same, essentially the same as the DAT cap land and water resource management grant money. However, it's coming from a different source from DAT cap. So I thought we should list that in addition and charge our usual 5% fee on those cost share funds. So those would be the changes. All of this would be in time today for our first, you know, we haven't charged anybody the 7.5% when we shouldn't have yet, or however you want to look at that, but this would be the perfect time to make the appropriate changes, I guess. So we would, if you agree with that, I guess we would need a motion to do so.
I will make that motion to adopt this fee schedule.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on it? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Okay.
Okay, I just had the tree sale on here just to bring it to everybody's attention. There's really nothing actionable, but I did order the trees for our 2020-2021 tree sale. It is notable that the nursery was out of a couple of our usual species, so I think we ordered a few less trees than normal. My sheet says 29,900 for a total cost of 20,142. Our flyers will be going out by the end of the month for that. I'm kind of waiting on Mark Sether. We've got the credit card payment stuff coming to the county for the first time ever, and I'm really hopeful, although I'm sure it'll be painful for a few minutes, but I'm really hopeful that we'll get a fair amount of people paying by credit card, which should save us a little bit of work versus mailing in checks and all of that stuff, or coming in person or whatever the case may be. So I think Christie or whoever will send an email out to the county. I don't know if she includes county board on that, but we should have it up and ready to go here by the end of the month to do our best to sell trees. So. And then I had the budget on just as an emergency precaution in case last week Heidi said we wouldn't need to make any changes at finance. I didn't sense that out of finance at this point. So our budget still stands as we passed at last meeting, with no necessary changes. So that's why that's there. Any questions on that? No. All right, so on the table, there is a sheet with the cost share agreements for this month, which is a little bit longer list than most months. And the reason for that is the cover crop program in the Bear Lake watershed. Just for record, I put up on top, we had passed one last month for Dan Burst. But I just wanted to, I'm kind of proud of the totals here with the cover crops. We've got between last month and what's on the docket here this month, we've got almost 1,800 acres of cover crops that'll total about $97,000 worth of cost share, just in the Bear Lake large scale trim watershed. And there's other folks around the county that are in Lisa's program too for cover crops, but I think we're starting to have a pretty good year. Obviously, it helps that we've got some very good cost sharing out there for cover crops. The demo farms have been pounding that idea too. And like Lisa mentioned, different from many years ago, the dairy guys can take their cover as feed in the spring before they till back into it with the next crop. So anyway, we've got our list of cost share agreements here. 3 of them for Clinton Farms, all cover crops. Charlin Farms, cover crops. 2 for Jeff Henschel, cover crops. Russberg, cover crops. And then we've got 2 water and sediment control basins and underground outlets on the bottom. Melvin Muck, which is partially funded by us, and then several basins for Dave Lindsay at Charlin Farms yet, finishing up from our work there a few years ago. Now that we finally got some early enough harvest here, we've got a couple more to go in there that we've been holding off on the last 2 years. So we need approval for those.
I would make such a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ken? Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to, under the September 2020 cost share agreements, to approve as printed. Any further discussion on that?
I'll just note that in the 3-year budget for our large scale trim grant project, we had $126,000 per year for cropping practices. So we just burnt up about 80% of that in 1 month here, which is good. I mean, this is the time of year that's going to happen. So if we're lucky, we might have a couple more before next month.
Any other comments or discussion? Call a question. All those in favor of this action signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried.
So I had a note last month. Somebody must have asked a question about watersheds. And I just had a note on here to show you a couple of pictures. They're not great, but we talk about watersheds an awful lot in this line of work. And I'm just going to show you three maps that come off a DNR surface water data viewer. Unfortunately, they don't have names on them. They have numbers, but this is the first one. This is what they call the map of the HUC, which stands for Hydrologic Unit Code, HUC 8 watersheds. So what you see on here is the Wolf Basin. I don't know if this thing's gonna work, it's not, but you see the Wolf Basin here in the middle, kind of giving us the finger at the top there a little bit. But Waupaca County is entirely within the Wolf Basin. I'm going to stop that and I'm going to add the next level down. So then from there, we go to a HUC 10. Let's see if I get lucky here. I did not get lucky there.
It is.
So that Wolf Basin actually starts right up there by Hiles, where the Wolf starts, comes all the way down.
Correct.
That's where the Wolf starts. Yeah. Yeah, we're on that. Up there. Right where it starts.
So then I guess what I'll show you next here is it goes down from there. There's a Huck 8 is what we saw. There's a Huck 10. This is the Huck 12 list, which breaks things down into smaller watersheds. These watersheds tend to be equivalent to about a township or township and a half in size. But this is the list we use for these 9 key element plans that we do. This particular watershed right here is the Bear Lake watershed. Even though Bear Lake is way down at the tip of it, it takes a certain portion of the Little Wolf River watershed. The next 9 key element plan that we did was this, the next one up from Bear Lake, which is the Shaw Creek. We also did one down in Wyawega here in this watershed. Those are those 3 plans that we've done over the last 3 years with private contracting. So I just thought I'd take a minute of education to show you that, because these boundaries and these numbers, you know, we see these almost on a daily basis in our lives. But so that's kind of, and what you see a lot of at this size is a lot of these watersheds cross the county line. Now, the ones that we've chosen to work in and the ones that are in some of our worst areas, we're lucky enough that they're entirely within our county, so we don't have to play ball with our neighboring counties. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just makes everything more complicated. If you remember a couple of years ago, we had a special project in the Pigeon Lake watershed, which is this little one right here. And then the Pigeon River watersheds come up into Shawano County. We didn't work in those at the time, but we, you know, those are some of our other primary ag areas in the county. So. All right, so just that as a note from last meeting. With any luck, well, I've got some more drone video here. Since we bought the thing, we'll use it a little bit, but if this works.
Is there more than one drone?
No, just one.
Because there was one flying around my county shop last week. That's pretty good size.
Not us. I know a couple of the children of the county highway guys have them. For whatever reason, we're not actually getting video here. Try this one more time. Yeah, I know that. Maybe we won't be so technologically lucky here today. The particular video was from a construction of a water and sediment control basin.
Who's farming?
It's actually on Ken Raisler's property up on
okay.
Highway
Yep.
22.
That's that one, yeah, that's where Clinton's up there.
Yeah, actually is Clinton's used to operate it, but now his son-in-law, Jeff Petke, does. Well, we're not gonna get this to work today for whatever reason.
So that's that work that was all done up there, okay.
It is, yeah. Huh. Oh, I can't even get out of it. Ooh, won't do that. All right, well, we'll have to try that next time, but it was, the guys had put together a pretty good video of pre-construction of the gully. There was a pretty good gully that ran across the property. And then they flew the drone several days during construction, and it was a really good aerial tour of what it entails for us to put in a water and sediment control basin with the tile going in and the berm being built. And
Yeah, I was curious because as I come down that way, I mean, there was some heavy equipment down there moving a lot of dirt around.
yeah, and we'll try this again next time. I may have to use my own laptop. I don't know if Jill's isn't. We were able to do this prior, but for whatever reason, it's not flying on this screen today. So, but yeah, moving along, we've started a couple basin projects. We're finally going to finish up Town Line Farms. That's a trim grant it's been going on for 3 years now, but they had been waiting for their last transfer to their new manure pit, waiting for a silo to have been removed and to get that transfer in. Jeff Henschel's roof system is going in. We've got some transfers in that yet, kind of finishing up his line of larger work that's been going on for a couple of years. And then we've certainly got these basins going on at Mucks, at Charland. We may have some going on at what used to be the Bauer Farms. Would now be his niece running that. So we expect quite a handful of basins to go in, especially with the early cropping season. I mean, there's quite a bit of silage that's come off already, quite a bit of it, even some in places where it's not supposed to.
Right.
We heard about that.
That's another story.
You gotta stick around home.
So the only other thing I have been working on, kind of by chance, but we keep talking about getting back to our irrigation ordinance. I've been working on that a little bit with Mark Egan over at Egan Dairy. He's had questions about it. He knew we were working on it, so we developed a map based on our old draft ordinance for him to show him where he could and couldn't irrigate. And I guess one of the things I need to look into yet is if we're going to differentiate between manure irrigation and leachate irrigation, because that's really what we're going to see first is the desire to irrigate leachate off of feed bunkers. And a couple of the guys in the county have separate manure storages just for leachate. So it's actually a separate product with a lot less problems associated with it as far as pathogens go. So,
What nutrients are in the leachate as far as fertilization of any?
well, there's very high phosphorus in it. I'm sure there's some nitrate in it. It's got a very high biological oxygen demand. It'll kill off a river probably quicker than manure will. It just doesn't have those pathogens in it from manure that you would see with respect to irrigation. If they're going to blow it around in the air, I don't know that we've got to worry about that aspect of it as much. I need to look into that a little bit. Trying to think if we had, I don't think we had any complaints this month. I would expect next month to be a little busier as we start to see manure moving again. I get a few calls and questions from people about how much manure can go on, but nobody's actually made any complaints about anything yet. So that's that.
Okay. Upcoming meetings, next meeting?
Yeah, you and I had talked about needing to go to November 9th.
Is that gonna work for everybody? November 9th, the second Monday.
Well, it's usually the first November. It doesn't thrill me, Ken, but I can give up one more. I won't be here on November 2nd because I'll be coming back from Colorado yet.
October would be our regular one. We're just looking ahead for November.
Or yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, October would be the regular one.
I don't know why we're talking about
Well,
November already.
You brought that up.
Yeah, you and I were talking about it.
I'm probably gonna be in Florida and he's gonna be hunting. In November.
Were we supposed to know this was at 8 o'clock this morning?
Yeah.
If you read the agenda, we did change it, yeah.
I don't usually read it till I get here.
The problem we're having is that this room is so booked up lately, like somebody's got a meeting in here in 25 minutes. I forget who, but, so we have to keep bumping our times around so everybody fits in this room.
They had shocked me too.
Well, I just was wasting a half an hour because I didn't have something to do. Could have been here.
Well, maybe we should clarify this for October now, coming up. Did you want it at 8:30 or 8 o'clock?
It works for me. It works. It's going to say on my internet.
Without knowing the meeting schedule, I think we should probably stick to 8 o'clock for the moment because there's likely somebody following us at 9:30 or 10. So.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be okay as long as it's okay for everybody. 8 o'clock. Okay.
So then the question is, are we looking at the 4th or the 11th?
October.
Yeah.
October, I think we can look at the first Monday. Right? You didn't have anything else?
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I was looking at the first Monday in October.
The first Monday in Land&Water.
Say that again.
Land&Water, I'm sorry, egg.
You do the first Monday? At what time? Oh. Okay. Did you always have the first Monday?
It's usually the last.
We always
Yeah,
were,
it's left.
pardon me?
It is. I thought this was last. Yeah, that's the last.
Okay. Usually we were safe having the first
Yeah.
Monday.
Okay.
Are we okay yet then? 8 o'clock?
Was it 8 p.m.? What'd you say?
I thought he said.
Well, it's either the 4th or the 11th. My only argument for the 11th was that we'd be spaced out a month apart, knowing that we're going to be second week in November too. But it don't matter to me. So. Monday the 4th or Monday the 11th.
11? Is that okay? 'Cause I'm-
Oh, when is, do I have,
Emergency management.
emergency planning, isn't it?
I don't know.
Which is every other, is it every?
It's every other month, right?
Yeah, so that'd be next month.
So that'd be next month. All right. So then we better stick with the 4th.
We better stick with the 4th.
In November.
Pardon me?
October, that'd be the 5th.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm thinking that's what, that was what's.
I'm sorry, 5th, yeah.
Okay. Whatever the first Monday is.
October 5th, 8 o'clock.
I guess we can adjourn. Yeah?
Make a motion.
Okay, we are adjourned.
And here's the sign-in sheet.
Oh, yeah, sign it.
Oh, maybe, what is the price for right? What is it? What are they basing it? Reimbursement of 470.
Bob, Lisa, thanks for tuning
Yes,
in.
sir.
700?
Have a good day.
See you later.
You too.
I sold my cows 9 years ago.